Welcome to 1, 2, 3, Go. It's your boy Jay, and I'm back with another video. Hope everybody is doing well. Been having a good time out here riding my Ryker, trying to get these rides in before the weather shifts and it gets a little too chilly out there. So yeah, North Carolina's feeling real good right now. I think it's in the mid 70s, so I'm able to ride with my jacket still without putting my liner in. So trying to take advantage of this beautiful blue sky and this sun, and no real crazy cold weather just yet, or damp weather, so I'm happy about that. But this video today, I want to talk about something that's really important. I'm actually in a bunch of Ryker Facebook groups, and ran into a conversation around purchasing accessories. Somebody had asked a question in one of the Facebook groups about I guess trying to acquire accessories, and how much should things cost, and what should the cost of installation be, and all of that. So this video isn't going to be what you think it is. We all know pretty much if you buy all the BRP products, you're pretty much going to be ordering straight from a dealership, from a parts department, which is okay if that's what you want. That's what I did. I was thinking about convenience more than anything. I also did kind of look at some of the aftermarket products as well. And honestly, I just like the look of the BRP products when it all came down to it, for the main pieces that I got, which is the shad bag, my comfort seats for the passenger and for the driver, as well as my backrest, which currently has my helmet mounted on it, sitting on it, and my windscreen. So there are other products out there, and I'm not too concerned with going back and forth over which one you should get or anything like that. But what I do want to talk about in this video is, if you decide to do all of your own installations, which I did, that was one of the selling points for me. When I first learned about the Ryker several years ago, I fell in love with the modularity of it. The idea that you could move the handlebars forward, you could move the foot pegs and the brake pedal in different positions, that you could easily attach accessories to the max mount, that you could pretty much make the bike whatever you wanted to make it without having to go to a custom shop and have to give them your bike for weeks at a time while they do stuff that might be permanent. I like the idea of the modularity. I like the idea that if I don't want the look of the shad bag on the side, I can just pop this thing off, leave it in the garage, and I got a streamlined, more sportier looking bike. Well, if I want to keep it on, it's whatever. So that's why I fell in love with the Ryker, aside from just the ride and the experience itself. But also, like I said, I wanted to do all my own work. I want to have an intimate relationship with my Ryker. So when it comes down to the regular maintenance, when it comes down to doing small repairs on it, that sort of thing, I want to be hands-on, because at the end of the day, if I'm out there on the road somewhere and something happens, I don't want to get stranded or feel like I don't know how to resolve a particular issue that I might be having with the Ryker at that particular time. So again, I want to have a close, intimate relationship with this thing so that I can basically be safe at all times and troubleshoot problems that I may have. So that way, when I do go to the service lane, if it is something that requires their attention, I know what I'm talking about, and I'm not going to be fooled by anything that they might be saying to me. So that being said, if you take the approach that I took, let me just kind of do some quick math. So when I purchased everything, I was originally going to finance all of my accessories in with the purchase of the main unit itself. And then I started looking at some of the numbers, and they did something weird. They had this installation and labor fee, and that price was somewhere in the neighborhood of almost $1,200. But my accessories were only like $17. So the math wasn't mathing at the end of the day. I was like, all of these accessories are basically bolt-on, screw-on. And so I decided, you know what? Instead of financing this and having to pay interest on this stuff, let me just go ahead and pull the credit card real quick, and I'm gonna just buy all the accessories out of pocket right there at the parts department, and then I'm gonna bypass the labor fee, and I'm gonna install all the accessories myself. So here's the accessory math for my current setup. I just want to put this in perspective before some of you go out there and start spending a ton of money on installation, especially if you're handy with a screwdriver and some basic hand tools. There are only 4 screws that hold this adventure windscreen to the front of the bike, right behind the display. Only 4, okay? It is kind of tricky to manage the plastic piece, this black plastic piece, while still holding the screen in place, because they're 2 separate parts when you first put it together, but it's 4 screws. The shad bag, you have to deal with the 4 screws that hold the max mount in place. You also have an additional screw that kind of mounts a support bar that's underneath the bike that connects to the side. I believe there's only 1 or 2 screws there. The seat, there are only 2 screws that hold the backrest onto the bottom of the comfort seat, or if you have the standard passenger seat, only 2 screws hold it in position. The foot pegs, each foot peg has 3 basically bolts or screws, however you want to, they're socket style, so there's 3 of them on each one. And there is a support bar that goes directly under the max mount and underneath the frame. So basically, the best way to describe it is if something were to happen to the 4 bolts that hold the max mount in place and it were to separate, that support bar would kind of catch the seat, like based on how it's tucked under the frame. But also, too, it provides some lateral support. So that way, when you put the weight on the pegs, it doesn't move any of the max mount or anything underneath and allow it to compress on itself. 4 screws, okay? Y'all did the screw math, right? I'm not counting it up, but I'll put a little ticker down here in the bottom. That was all the number of screws that I had to deal with when I was putting this whole thing together. There's actually 2 additional screws under here, underneath the support. That's it. On the max mount, 2 screws get replaced if you have the shad bag because of how it's designed, and 2 screws have to be, or 2 bolts, I don't know what you want to call them. I guess they're bolts. They have to be, they're a little bit longer because of the shape of, or the depth that the shad bag support creates. That's it. So all it took was a Torx wrench or screwdriver, and I had to have a little socket wrench for the ones for the pegs. That was really it. I'm not paying $1,200 for that, just not. Now, here's something that's really important. If you're gonna do it, which I encourage you to, because that way if something happens, or if you're in a situation where you decide, you know what, I don't want to ride with the windscreen today, you know how to take it off because somebody else didn't put it on. So you know where the screws are located, you know how much of a hassle it is to try to hold both pieces together, you understand, so you know what you're getting into. Same thing with any of the other accessories, the max mount, the shad bag support, whatever. Something that's really important is paying attention to the order in which you actually place the accessories on. I didn't know that when I first put everything on. So my first day when I got the Ryker was a Friday. And of course I drove. Like I got the thing out there. I probably put a good 100 miles on it, just riding around, joyriding. I got my Ryker. I'm cool. I had nothing else on it. It was just a raw, naked Ryker. And then I did get on the highway for a split second that following morning. And I was like, yeah, I got to have that windscreen. So that was the first thing I put on was the windscreen because I didn't like the way the wind was hitting me. And then I came home that afternoon and put the rest on. So the order of events, or the order of installation. If you have a setup similar to mine, or you want to have a setup similar to mine, the most important thing to remember is this. Put your shad bag mount on first. And here's why, okay? Remember what I said earlier, there's a support bar that goes directly under the driver's seat that basically acts as a support when you put those extra pegs on. When you mount that support bar and you bolt it in place, the max mount does not move at all. It is like, it's already, if you try to unbolt the max mount with the 4 bolts and then you try to slide it back, it will not move. That bar holds everything in place. The problem with that is that there's the support bar underneath the seat for the shad bag kind of forms a right angle. So you got this support bar that goes under your rear end. Then you got the arm that sticks out, which is what this is hanging on. So I'm just going to remove this so you can see what I'm talking about, okay? So I'm going to move my shad bag off to the side here. Don't want to get it scratched up. So I'm just going to lay it like this, probably scuffed it anyway. This bar right here has a support bar underneath. And I'll get a little close up so you can kind of take a closer look at it in some B-roll. Well, what happens is there are 2 bolts that are directly underneath the seat itself, like just underneath the passenger seat. And when your max mount is in full position, there's not enough room to get to those 2 screws to actually be able to tighten them down and actually put that crossbar underneath. So if you've already put that support bar underneath the driver's seat, you got to take it off and then pull the max mount back to give yourself enough clearance to screw those 2 screws in that hold this cross section in. Then you got to push everything forward. You got to line up the screw holes. You got to get those in. Then you still have to have a little bit of slack so that you can make sure that you get that bar position, because if the max mount is torqued down too tight, you can't get the bar in between. So you have to keep it just loose enough to get that bar in there. So the order of events, the order of installation, if you're gonna do the BRP shad bag support system, put that on first by releasing the max mount, sliding it back a little bit, put it in, do the whole entire installation for the support. Push the max mount forward, then go ahead and put your put the support bar underneath, put your pegs on, and put your seat in place, do whatever else you're gonna do, and you're good to go. That was the one thing I wish I would have known when I first did all of my installations. So I was so excited when I got my Ryker and I go to the garage that day, and I'm not really a garage guy. So to feel like I was a garage guy, I'm in there tinkering with tools. I got my door open, my neighbors are seeing me, and I'm feeling like the cool kid in the neighborhood working on my Ryker. And then I realized, like, yeah, I did that all backwards. Like, what was I thinking? I had to undo pretty much everything, except for I went ahead and took the pegs off just because I didn't know what was going on behind the max mount, and I didn't want to run into any issues. So I did take them off when I disassembled everything to put this support frame in place. So just pay attention, use a little bit of logic, watch this video. You know, if you need to watch it again, watch it again. I mean, I want to get all the likes and watches and subscriptions and all that stuff, but watch it again and hear me clearly. If you're gonna put this frame on and you have a rear passenger seat, do not tighten up, do not put that support bar under here, underneath the driver, until you have put this whole frame assembly together, and the max mount should still be able to move freely, because this is independent of the max mount. Actually, I take that back. It's not independent of the max mount. It's bolted through the max mount holes. However, the max mount, once you have this put in place, don't tighten it all the way down, because you still need to have a little bit of wiggle room to get that bar, that support bar, in the right position to line the holes up and then bolt it in place. So just remember that, okay? I hope that this video was informative. One other quick little tip that BRP doesn't do a really good job of making us aware of: instructions. Okay, so when you get your accessories, you're gonna open the box up, you're gonna get everything out. You know, all the cartons are open, and you're gonna look around and be like, there's nothing else in the box. There's this one little sheet of paper, and it's got something on it in multiple languages. It's white with like red lettering and black lettering. Pay attention to that. It has a URL address on it that sends you to their installation videos. And they have a bunch of installation videos that are basically on YouTube. And they don't tell you that. The parts department doesn't point that out. Nobody says anything to you about it. So take a look when you open those cartons up and you start pulling out all your different accessories. Go grab those videos, and that'll make your life a whole lot easier than trying to watch some do-it-yourselfers, you know, walk you through the process. The videos, and I'll try to see if I can find one and I'll embed it in this as I'm talking, if I can locate one. The videos are 3D renders, so it's a lot easier to see what's going on. It's a lot easier to see the position of certain things, and you don't have to worry about you know, somebody online or social media content creator or another Ryker rider online trying to walk you through it, but then they don't have a good camera position on something, or you know, you don't get a good close-up of what you're really trying to see. Those videos are really helpful, and I actually use those to at least get a different perspective, or make sure I was looking at all the position of everything correctly. Like, for example, the bar that goes underneath that's a part of the pedal in the passenger seat setup. That bar has a unique shape to it, and you have to put it in the right position. If you don't, I imagine it could be a problem. So watching the video several times, I was able to see how the bar should be positioned, and it made it easier for me to do it. I just had to loosen everything back up, obviously. So look in the boxes, look for those little slips of paper, and follow that URL. Go to the site, go to the videos, and watch those videos. Put them on loop or whatever. Replay them several times until you feel confident in what you're doing, and that'll be I think you'll find that extremely helpful. So that was I saw another video where there was a guy, I forget his name right now, but I ran into his video where he was showing how to put on the support for the shad backs. He showed the video, but he didn't say where he got it from. So at least I didn't see anything on the video where that mentioned that. So I just wanted to point that out. That was I guess I'll call it a pro tip with your Ryker and your installation, is to go to those videos and use them to help figure out how you should assemble things and what torque settings you should use and that sort of thing. Also, one last thing, and then I'm done. Know how to use your tools, okay? If you have never used a torque wrench before, don't run to the store and buy a torque wrench and then think that you know what you're doing to start torquing down your bolts and everything. You are going to strip the threading on something. I did it. It was my mistake. I learned from my own lesson. Torque wrenches are funny. You have to do, I forget what the term is, but basically it's like you have to exercise them before you actually go to use them each and every time, because they're spring loaded. They got some other things going on with the handle system. So like when I started researching, and anybody who's a gearhead or a tool guy, whatever, tool woman, correct me if I'm wrong or comment or whatever the case may be, but you should exercise your torque wrench, or basically you compress it, release it, and do it 3 or 4 times before you actually go to use it, and you do it before every use. I didn't know that, so I got my first little rinky-dink torque wrench. I ordered it off of Walmart.com. I will admit it was a piece of crap. However, I didn't compress it. I'll call it exercise it. I didn't do anything with it. I just set the setting and went to it, and I stripped the bolt immediately. And so I stopped. I hand tightened everything, went to the dealership, they rethreaded, they did what they had to do to fix the one bolt that I messed up, or the threading that I messed up for the bolt hole, and I was good to go. Then I got a better torque wrench, and then I started reading the instructions, and I was like, yeah, I probably should have known that before I grabbed this rinky-dink cheap one, and it made a world of difference, and I did take that other one back. So just be careful with your torque wrenches, because you will, if you don't know what you're doing with one, you will mess something up. The other thing that I experienced, and I have to give hats off to BRP for designing the Ryker the way they did. There's holes that the bolts go into. They have a unique design to them, and Can-Am, I guess BRP designed it where if it just so happens that you strip one, it's actually designed where they can replace the whole section. It has to be welded back in, but they can actually replace it. So that's really good to know. So if you do anything and you can't see what's going on behind your max mount, and you think you've stripped the threading on one of the bolts or one of the nuts that's kind of mounted inside, you're not actually stripping the metal frame itself. You're stripping something that can be taken out and inserted again. So just keep that in mind. Now, that doesn't mean go and just tear your whole system up, but if you do run into a situation, you are not doomed. It is not a disaster. Take it back to the dealership. They can weld another one in place, and then you'll have all new threading, and it's a unique design. So I don't want to get into describing. I don't even know the technical name for it, but it was really helpful to know that was there. And I noticed it when I first took the max mount off. I was like, oh, that's how they did it. So if something were to happen, they can replace it, and you don't have to worry about your frame being damaged and not being repairable. So yeah, that's it. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Definitely comment, like, subscribe, follow your boy, engage with me, talk to me. What's going on out there? What have been your experiences mounting accessories on your Ryker? Did you do it yourself? Did you just leave it to the dealership, or do you want to do your own accessories and add them on yourself, and you're just not willing, or you're scared to take that first step? Let me know, and I hope this encourages you to get out there and grab some hand tools and do your thing, man, and make this Ryker your own custom experience.